Hello and welcome to the Beach House 34 podcast. I'm your host, Christine Worth. If you're here, you know that I've covered the Darlie Routier Trial transcripts from the very beginning. Many people have asked when Darlie's testimony was coming, and now we're here. We've heard from the prosecution, police officers, blood spatter experts, doctors, nurses, an FBI agent, and more. We've heard from the defense, a psychologist, Darlie's husband, and even another former FBI agent who, unfortunately, was not allowed to share his information before the jury. And now, in a nearly unprecedented decision, the accused, Darlie Routier, will take the stand. But just imagine for a moment, in Kerrville, Texas, a crowd gathers in the early morning hours in the hopes of getting a spot inside the courtroom to hear from Darlie herself. The atmosphere is thick with anticipation, wanting to hear from Darlie. Was she really a killer, or was she a grieving parent who just wanted to set the record straight? As the trial begins, just imagine the hush that took over that courtroom. This moment was the one that everyone was waiting for. Let's begin with part one of Darlie Routier's testimony. The court says, Mrs. Routier, would you mind raising your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? The defendant says, I do. And the court says, all right, thank you. Ma'am, you have a right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution of the United States not to testify in this case if you so desire. If you want to testify, no one can stop you. If you don't want to testify, no one can make you. Do you understand that? Yes, sir. If you testify, you are going to be considered like any other witness, and anything you say can and will be used against you. Plus, the state's attorneys will have the right to cross-examine you and ask you questions. Do you understand that? Yes, sir. If you elect not to testify, and I will instruct the jury that they cannot hold that against you for any reason whatsoever. Do you understand that? Yes, sir. And I know you have discussed this with Mr. Mulder and Mr. Mosty and Mr. Glover and Mr. Douglas and Mr. Hagler, all of your attorneys. Yes, sir. And understanding all of your rights, do you wish to testify or not? Yes, sir. All right, fine. And I believe you would like to be excused now for a minute, which is fine. Miss Biggerstaff, if you will please remove any restraints that may be on the defendant. Now, I take it that Mrs. Routier will be going to the ladies' room in a minute, and then we will get on with her testimony. And Mr. Mulder and Mr. Mosty and all of the attorneys, for the record, you are satisfied that your client understands her rights? Yes, sir. Okay, fine. Thank you. At which time Darlie leaves. She comes back, and the court says, all right, bring the audience back in, please. Is everybody ready to bring the jury back in? Mr. Greg Davis of the prosecution says, yes, Your Honor, we are ready. Mr. Preston Douglas of the defense team says, yes, Your Honor, we are ready. The court then says, all right, let the record reflect that all parties in the trial are present and the jury is seated. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this witness has already been sworn outside of your presence. Mr. Mulder. Yes, sir. You may proceed now. Yes, sir. Thank you. And the direct examination is begun by Mr. Douglas Mulder. You are Darlie Routier? Yes, sir. And Darlie, will you tell the jury how old you are? I'm 27. Okay. And are you married? Yes. Tell the jury where you grew up. Well, I was born in Altoona, Pennsylvania. We moved when I was 7 years old. We moved to Lubbock, Texas. We came back to Pennsylvania when I was probably about 11 and moved again when I was 13 back to Lubbock. Okay. Were you in school there in Lubbock? Yes, I was. And at that time, what did your family consist of? Well, it was myself and my mother and my father and my two little sisters, Dana and Danielle. And how much younger were they than you? Well, Dana is 10 years younger than I am, and Danielle is almost 12 years younger than I am. How long did you stay there in Pennsylvania before you moved, if you did? The first time or the second time? Well, as I understand it, you were born there and lived there. About how long did you live there? 7 years. Okay. And where did you move when you left Pennsylvania? Lubbock, Texas. Okay. And how long did you stay there in Lubbock? It was just a few years at that time. Okay. We moved back to Pennsylvania after that. All right. And then after that, I believe we moved back to Lubbock when I was 13. Okay. Were you in school there in Lubbock? Yes. Did you graduate from high school there in Lubbock? Yes, sir. All right. Did you have any further or higher education other than high school? No, sir. All right. Now, while you were there in high school in Lubbock, did you have occasion to meet Darren Routier? Yes, I did. And how old were you when you met Darren? I was 15 when I met Darren. All right. And what was he doing at that time? At that time, Darren was running or helping as assistant manager of a place called Western Sizzler. It's a steak place in Lubbock. Okay. And how did you happen to meet him? Well, it was on Mother's Day, and my mother had been telling me about this great guy that worked at Western Sizzler with her, and she brought me in and introduced me to him. And Darren and I hit it off just right away. It was automatic. All right. Did you begin dating? Yes. Was he older? Yes. How much older was he? 2 years. Okay. He graduated from high school, did he? Yes, he did. Okay. And moved to Dallas? Yes, sir. Okay. I'll ask you if you then got engaged at some point. Yes, we did. And do you remember where you were when you got engaged? Yes, we were in Purgatory, Colorado. We were up on a ski lift when Darren asked me to marry him. All right. And you agreed, I take it? Yes. All right. And you were married sometime after you graduated from high school? Yes, sir. Will you tell the jury when you were married? We were married August 27th, 1988. Okay. And did you go on a honeymoon? Yes, we did. Where did you go? We went to Jamaica. When you got back, where did the two of you reside? We were living in an apartment. Actually, I believe it was in Garland, but it was right off of there is like a peninsula off of Lake Ray Hubbard, and it was right off of that in an apartment. Okay. And at that time, were you both working? Yes. And where were you working? We were both working at Couplex in Rowlett. Okay. And what sort of business is Couplex? Well, Couplex is a printed circuit board manufacturing place. They start from start to finish. Okay. And what sort of work did you do there? I put the image on the printed circuit boards. When you get a printed circuit board, it's just a blank, pretty much piece of fiberglass, and they have these machines, and you take this film and you put it onto the board, and the machine photosynth, I don't know what it's called, but anyway, it puts the film onto the board, and that is basically what I was doing. Okay. How long did you work there at Couplex? I worked at Couplex, I believe it was about 8 months. Okay. And how long did Darren work there? I think Darren was there for about, I want to say like 4 years. Okay. At some point, did you all start your own business? Yes, we did. What was the name of your business? Tesnic Electronics. Okay. And what sort of work did you and Darren do? Well, in the beginning, we just started out selling pins like as a broker type. Okay. As we went on, we started building fixtures. All right. Tell us what you started selling pins? Yeah, pins. They are just parts that go into testing a printed circuit board, and companies all over the world use them. And so in this business, it's a common thing. Okay. So then you expanded the business to include what? Yes, we expanded the business in 91, I believe. Okay. In 92, we moved into a building because the business was growing. Had you been operating the business out of your apartment? Yes. Well, at that time, we had moved out of the apartment and had gotten a home. Okay. And where was the home located? It was on Bond Street in Rowlett. Okay. You operated your business out of your home? Yes, sir. And what had the business expanded to at that point? What were y'all doing? While we were still in the home? Yes. We were pretty much still doing the same thing, selling pins and building fixtures. Okay. And what is a fixture? A fixture is basically it's made out of polycarbonate, which is like a plastic material, and Darin drills the image of the board into the polycarbonate. At that point, you put the polycarbonate together, and then you put these pins down into the polycarbonate, and that fixture is placed onto a tester. And a tester then is able to test the continuity of the board to make sure that it is a good board or if it's a bad board. Okay. You did this for a number of different companies? Yes, sir. Okay. By the time you moved to the residence on Bond Street, had your first son been born? No, I was pregnant at the time, and I had him 2 days after we moved into the home. Okay. It was kind of a funny moment because I was at the door when my water broke, and the pizza man and the real estate agent were both standing at the door with me at the time. So it was kind of okay. And your first son was Devin? Yes. And when was he born? Devin was born June the 14th, 1989. Okay. And y'all continued to live at the house on Bond Street? Yes, we did. And did your business expand to the point where Darin was able to quit his job at Kuplex? Yes. And work full time on your own business? Yes, sir. And were you helping him at that time too? Yes, sir. You all were doing the business together? Yes. Did the business continue to grow? Yes, it did. All right. And did y'all have a second child? Yes, sir, we did. And that would be Damon? That would be Damon. And when was he born? He was born February 19th of 1991. Okay. And y'all were still living on Bond Street at that time? Yes, we were. Okay. How long was it before y'all moved over on Eagle Drive? We moved to our new home on Eagle Drive in 1993. Okay. And by that time, were you still operating your business out of your home? No, sir. All right. You had moved the business to a commercial building? Yes, we moved to, it's like a warehouse building off of Main Street. Okay. And the business continued to prosper? Did it? Yes. And the boys continued to grow? Yes. What sort of things did you and your husband and the boys enjoy? What did you folks enjoy doing? A lot of things. Darin and I spent a lot of our extra time that we had with Devin and Damon. Devin and Damon were very much a big part of our lives. I don't remember doing too many things without Devin and Damon. They loved to eat out. They loved different cultures. It was very important to me as human beings. A lot of us are from different cultures, and it was very important to me that Devin and Damon understood people from different cultures. And they like to eat, Chinese food, Vietnamese food, just all different kinds of things. Did y'all take trips together? Oh, yeah. Were you close to your family? My family and Darin's. Would you travel to Lubbock, I suspect? Oh, yeah, many times. You have relatives back in Pennsylvania? Yes. And would the boys go back to Pennsylvania with you? At least once a year. Okay. And how often would you go to Lubbock? Several times in a year. Okay. And how many brothers and sisters does Darin have? Darin has a brother, Dion, and he has a sister, Arenda. Okay. Are they younger or older? They are both younger. Okay. Do you know about how old they are? Dion is 27 and Arenda is 21, I believe. Okay. Did the business continue to prosper? Yeah. And as it did y'all travel more and do more things with the boys? I guess we did. As the boys started to get older, we started to do more things with them. I don't know if it was a matter of so much the business prospering, but it was just a fact that the boys were getting older and were able to do more things. Okay. Along in the early part of 1995, you became pregnant with a third child? Yes, I did. Okay. And your child, Drake, was subsequently born. I believe it was October the 18th? Yes. Of 1995? Yes, sir. Okay. That made 3 boys now? Yes, it did. Y'all were still living on Eagle Drive? Yes. Okay. And Drake came home from the hospital? Yes. How did Drake fit in with his older brothers? Devin and Damon were very proud of Drake. When I had Drake, Devin and Damon came up to the hospital. They couldn't wait to get up there to see him. And I have pictures of them holding Drake in their arms. And I have one picture where Devin and Damon they are little boys, and they found one of those rubber gloves from the room, and they were putting the rubber gloves on their head and acting silly and making faces and stuff, trying to, I guess it was in a child's way. It was their way of trying to, they don't know that a baby doesn't understand. They were being brothers to him. I mean, he fit into the family wonderfully. Okay. They loved him. Oh, they loved him very much. They liked to take care of him very much. Okay. Now, as time went on and Drake came home and continued to grow, he was a good sized youngster, was he? Yes, he got pretty big. All right. And by April and May, he would have weighed approximately how much? 16, 17, 18 pounds? 18 pounds, I would say. That is a big boy for an 8-month-old child, right? Yeah, he was pretty big. He has big hands and big feet. Okay. And at that point, I take it he wasn't walking, but was he able to pull himself up? Was he trying to walk? Or, yeah, he was getting to the point where he was trying to really pull himself up. And, he was kind of wobbly and unbalanced. All right, Darlie, there has been some testimony about you having the blues or being moody or depressed. Tell the jury how you were feeling about this time. You are talking about the incident in May? No, I'm talking about in April and what led up to the incident in May. Well, actually, I had quit breastfeeding Drake in March, and I had started taking some diet pills. Had you gained some weight? Yes, I had gained not a great deal of weight. I think I had maybe 12 or 15 pounds to lose after I had Drake. And you had lost part of it, had you? By May, I had lost almost all of it. Okay, you had started taking diet pills. Is that right? Yes, they were prescribed by the doctor. They were Pondamin and Fastin. And the reason I got on those particular pills was because I knew a lot of women that had been on these pills that had a very high success rate they didn't have a lot of the side effects that I have been told that the other diet pills have. They didn't make me feel irritable or jumpy, or the only thing I really felt from them is like a dryness in my mouth. So you tended to drink a lot more water, but that is about it. I mean, I still ate. Okay. Sometimes that's good when you are trying to lose weight to drink a lot of water. And that's what I have been told. Okay. But at any rate, those pills didn't alter your life, did they? No. Your emotions or have any effect on you that you are aware of? No, that is why I took them, because they didn't have those side effects. Okay. In April and May, in the first part of May, were you feeling bluesy or were you feeling depressed or how were you feeling? I was feeling somewhat, I guess you could say, I would say moody. Okay. I want you to tell the jury, as best you can, how you felt and what led up to the phone call to Darin on May the 3rd of 1996. I had been having a few days that were really rough. I was crying a lot. Well, usually I'm not a big crier. Are you pretty upbeat as a rule? Yes, I am the type of person that you can either look at the glass half empty or half full. And I'm the type of person that looks at it half full. And I didn't like feeling like that. It really bothered me. And I started to write a letter. And as I started to write the letter, I was reading it and I realized that it was silly. I mean, I wasn't really serious or feeling that I really wanted to end my life. It was, I mean, I'm very embarrassed. I am very embarrassed that I have to get up here and even tell you people about that part, but it is something. Well, you were writing into a journal that you didn't think anyone would ever read. It was private thoughts. Okay. I did not attempt to take my life. There is a difference. You called Darin. I called Darin at work. I told Darin that he needed to come home, that I was not feeling well, and that he needed to come home. Okay, prior to that entry, and I am looking at what has been marked for identification and record purposes and admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit number 90. Yes, sir. This is your journal? Yes, it is. And this was meant to be a private thing? Yes, sir. My husband didn't even read that. And I notice that there is an entry September 7th of 1995, another one September the 15th of 1995, one October the 1st of 1995, and then April the 21st of 1996, and then April the 29th of 96. Yes, sir. And then you skipped a lot of pages and May 3rd of 1996. So there are approximately 5 or 6 entries. And can I tell you why I started to write a journal in the first place? You bet. About 2 years before I started writing this journal, my grandfather had passed away. And my grandfather and I were very close. And my grandmother was always talking about the things that they did together and all of the times that they had together. And she said that she wished that she could have put all those times down on paper. I mean, she had the memories, but she wished that she could have something to pass on later when she wasn't around. And I was talking to my grandmother, and she told me that she had started writing in a journal. And so I thought that that would be a good idea for me to start writing a journal. And it helps. It helps, I think, at times when you have a busy life to be able to stop and breathe for a moment and reflect on what is important in your life. Well, it's almost like talking to someone in a very, very private relationship. Yes. Okay. And this, of course, was not written for this jury or for anyone else, was it? No, sir. I am very embarrassed about what. Would you read, Darlie, that first entry? September 7th, 1995. Yes. Quote, today is a new day with new hopes for everyone. I pray to God that Dana will open her eyes and break down her walls. Devin and Damon are growing so fast, and I see myself getting older each day. I am now over 7 months pregnant, and we're bringing Drake Routier into the world. It has been almost 5 years since I have had a baby, so I am a little worried, but inside I know everyone will adjust fine. My life is good, and I have much to be proud of, but sometimes we just forget. I think of my grandmother often, and I know how lonely she must be at times. I wish I could take away her pain. I know Pappy is watching over her. I have had 2 dreams about death in the past several months. Both times I was hesitant to go, but when I did, it was such a wonderful feeling, one that you cannot describe. And both times I felt I was going to be with the Lord. I don't know what these dreams are telling me. I only know that I am not yet ready to leave my wonderful life here. Time will tell the story. For now, I will close, for tomorrow is another day. Let it be a good one. Okay, your next entry is written, what, a week so? September 15th? Yeah. How much later? A week? 8 days? Yeah, about that. Okay. And read that, if you would, for the jury. Quote, time has passed so quickly since my last entrance in my journal. I have been very busy. Dana seems to be adjusting fine, as well as my mom. I know mom is having a hard time reliving her most unwanted experiences through counseling, but I know in the end, maybe it will make her heart a little softer. I don't understand why Denny did to me what he did, so it is very hard to try and forgive him. I know he must have a dark secret that happened as a child, and I pray to the Lord that one day he will ask for true forgiveness for his own soul." Unquote. Let me stop you right there. Who are you referring to as Denny? Denny is my stepfather, or was my stepfather. Okay. And he had not you, but he had put his hands on you. He fondled, tried to. And that is what you have referenced there too? Yes. When you talk about Denny and how he must have a dark side to him, yes, sir. To have done this to a child, yes, sir. And you resented it, very much so. And you told your mother about it? Oh, yes. She felt guilty about having not. Yes, it was an open conversation in our family. So that is what you have referenced to there? Yeah. Yes. Okay. If you would, just go back a couple of sentences and read it where you pick up on Denny so that we will quote, I don't understand why Denny did to me what he did. It is very hard to try and forgive him. I know he must have a very dark secret that happened as a child, and I pray to the Lord that one day he will ask for true forgiveness for his own soul. Eternity is a long time. Damon has been with his grandmother all week and will be returning home this evening. I can't wait to see him. I have really enjoyed the time with Devin, but when one of my babies are away, I do not feel complete. I guess that it's because they are such a part of my life. Sometimes I pray the Lord will guide them down the right path so that they will have a prosperous life. They deserve health, happiness, and peace. We all deserve that. Maybe if we could all relax a little more, then the world would be a much better place. I will close for now, and I ask the Lord to watch over us all and help us to make the right decisions. Okay. When is your next entry in the journal, Darlie? On October the 1st, 1995. All right. So that would be approximately 2 weeks later? Yes. Okay. And read that to the jury, if you would, please. Quote, time is getting near. Soon we will have another wonderful son. I feel him growing, and he is getting so big. I have not been well for about a week now. Everything hurts, and I can't seem to get over it. It's not fair to Darin or the boys, but nothing I do makes me feel any better. I really love Darin with all of my heart, but sometimes I feel like I'm missing something. I don't know what it could be. I'm sure I have everything every woman could ever wish for. Maybe it's the excitement. Things I used to do when I was younger, the thrill of not knowing, just doing whatever came up. I know I have a lot of responsibilities, but a little craziness once in a while sure wouldn't hurt. I want to grow old with Darin, but I don't want to feel as though part of me has to die to do it. I am young, and I want to feel it. Time goes too quickly not to enjoy each moment. Okay. What were you thinking about then? I think I was just kind of just reminiscing. Well, yeah, big and pregnant. Okay. You were about 8.5 months pregnant at that time, weren't you? I think so, yeah. Okay, all right. And when was your next entry? April 21st. Okay, of 1996? Yes, of 1996. All right. By this time, Drake is 6 months old? Yes, sir. Would you read that for the jury, please? Time has come and gone so quickly. Baby Drake was born October 18th. He weighs 6 pounds and 6 ounces, and he left the hospital weighing 5 pounds and 11 ounces, and he was wearing preemie clothes. He was a beautiful baby. All he did was sleep for the first 2 months. He is now 6 months old. He has 2 teeth, crawls, and tries to stand. Drake weighs almost 16 pounds. He has brown, dark hair and very blue eyes. He is so much fun and happy all the time. He smiles at everyone. I am a very proud mother of 3 wonderful, gorgeous, healthy boys. Dana has moved in with Kevin, and they are now engaged to be married. They seem to be having many troubles. I hope their love is strong and mature enough to make it through the trials of life. My thoughts are with Dana often. How young and so impatient in life. Danielle is growing into a beautiful young lady. It's hard to believe that she will be 14 in October. She is so full of life. Sometimes it really makes me see how quickly our lives pass by. I often wonder what God's purpose for me being here. I know my children, of course, but I really feel as though someday there is some meaningful importance that God expects us to figure out. What is it? I do not know. I do not yet know. I know sometimes God puts us through difficult trials in our life, and it is these trials that has made me such a strong and independent person. I hope I can share my experiences with others, either to comfort them or to keep them from making some of my mistakes. When I am no longer here, I want people to be able to talk about the good I did while I was here. I know my life has been far from perfect, but I know my heart bleeds for everyone. I wish I could take away all of the world's troubles. I know this is not realistic, but a person has to have hope and compassion. I pray for God to put his hand down upon my marriage. We need to be strong and help guide each other back to the right path. Devin and Damon are growing too fast and become more aware of the world every day. And unfortunately, children tend to be persuaded towards the negative instead of being hopeful for the positive. We all have to show our children the difference between right and wrong choices and make them understand that there are reactions and consequences for every choice we make in life. Give them morals and values. I want my children to respect the people as well as the land around them. I want them to see past color, to see past rich or poor, and to realize that we all need each other to survive. Maybe someday this will happen and the world will come together. There is still a lot of good in the world. People just seem to dwell on the bad. Maybe God will help us all to be better than that. For now, all I can do is try to be a better person and try to teach people among me to have hope and not give up. Life is too short and unlived. We need to start making it more than that. For now, I will end my thoughts and I will pray that God will reach down and touch all of us so that we will see and understand whatever it is that we may doubt. Give us strength to be better people. Watch over and protect the children, for they are our future. And this was just a letter reflecting and wondering at your 26 years of age, if you have some grand higher purpose or how you fit into the grand scheme of things. I think a lot of people wonder that. Well, I think everybody wonders how they fit in this grand scheme. Sure. At any rate, that was written in April 21st. Okay. And the next entry is the entry of April 29th is the one after that. All right. Read that one for us, Darlie. Today has been a pretty good day. This weekend was a little crazy, but it was fun. We went to a wedding, and it really made me realize how important marriage is, the commitment to one another. Darin and I have decided to renew our vows to one another on our 10th anniversary. So many things in our life have changed since we made our first commitment. 3 children, 2 homes, and a business, and a lot of growing up. Okay, you had, as a result of that wedding that y'all attended, you had made some plans? Yes. And what were those plans? Well, a couple of years before this, Darin had asked me, you know how you always sit around and talk and the conversation may come up, Quote, well, would you do the same thing that you did the first time around, unquote. And I have always told Darin, yes, I would marry you again in a second. And after we went to this wedding, one day or the day afterwards, Darin asked me seriously if I would remarry him again. And I told him yes, that I would. Okay. Did you start planning then in your mind for well, yeah, in Dallas. I know this is Kerrville, but in Dallas, if you want a wedding, you have to book the place about a year or 2 years ahead of time. So, okay, so you were planning it ahead of time? Yes, sir. Okay. And you had discussed this with Darin? I discussed it with many people. Okay. And then you were planning to renew your vows on your 10th wedding anniversary? Yes, sir. Okay. And were you making plans as to what you would wear and what the boys would wear and what part the boys would play? Oh, yeah. What did you have in mind for the boys? Well, the boys were going to be ring bearers, and they were going to be in a wedding in August. Also, my younger sister or sister-in-law was getting married in August, and the boys were going to be ring bearers at their wedding. And so I went out and I bought all of the stuff to make the boys' pillows to carry down the aisle. Okay. And what did you plan for baby Drake to do at your wedding? He was too young. He was just going to sit in the wedding and wear a little tuxedo. Okay. At any rate, you had made the entry for May 3rd. Yes, sir. Of 1996? Yes, sir. And tell the jury, I think I interrupted you and we had gone back to the journal and had read through the journal. And this brings us now up to date to May the 3rd. Yes, sir. And tell the jury what you were thinking and why you wrote what you wrote on May the 3rd. Well, to be honest, I don't know why I wrote this. It was just, I am embarrassed that I have to sit up here and even discuss this. I never planned for this to be produced in front of the whole world. I know it. And as you wrote the entry in your journal, when did you call Darin? I called him during the middle while I was writing. Okay. And did he come home shortly after that? Directly. What happened when Darin got there? Darin came up to the bedroom. Drake was sleeping in the crib, taking a nap. Damon was watching TV. I was laying on the bed and I was crying. I had my journal on the bed, but it was closed. And Darin came in and asked my what was wrong. And what did you tell him? I told him that I didn't like the way I was feeling the past couple of days, that I didn't like crying, and I didn't understand why I was feeling the way I was feeling. I didn't like it. Okay. And I told him what I started to write down in the journal. And Darin started to cry. And we cried for a little while together, a couple of minutes. And Darin asked me how I was thinking about doing this. When I said that I have thought about taking some pills when I was thinking about it, and just over the counter sleeping pills? Yes, they were just some over the counter sleeping pills that I had had. Okay. You didn't get anything special for this deal? What do you mean by special? Well, you had not gone out and made a purchase just over the counter? No, no, no. I mean, I had sleeping pills. I had lots of different pills in the house, headache pills and stuff. Okay. So you told Darin and y'all had a cry together and consoled one another, I suspect? Yes. Okay. And how did you resolve the situation? Well, the next day, Darin went to work and he asked me how I was feeling. And I told him that I was feeling a lot better. And he told me that if I had any problems to call him at work, and I told him that I would. And I think I was still a little bit moody, a little bit cryy for the next couple days. But soon after that, I had got my first menstrual cycle that I had not had in over a year. And I don't understand exactly how that works, but did that change your attitude? Yes, it made a big difference because I'm sure, I mean, women understand it better than men, of course, but yeah, it made a big difference. I mean, I was relieved. You perked up? Very much so. Yes. Okay. And seemed to be your old self again? Yes. Okay. Now, all during this time, and I say that from October through May and June, you continued to see your friends and have relationships with the neighbors and people around you. Oh, yeah, we were very busy. People came in and out of your house, didn't they? Every day. Did you have were the neighborhood children, were they welcome in your home? Yes, my home was a welcome home to all of the neighborhood children. I was one of the only homes on the block that would allow that many children in the house at one time. How many children are you talking about? Well, before Drake was born, there really wasn't a limit. But after I had Drake, it was harder because, he had his naps and he had different times, and the children needed to be quieter. So at that time, I limited them to each having one friend in the house at a time. And prior to that, I mean, before Drake was born, they had as many as it was the 6 or 7? Yeah, it was in and out quite a bit. Okay. I mean, our neighborhood is full of a lot of little boys. We don't have very many girls in the neighborhood. It's all little boys. Okay. Do you have any rules about yes. Okay. My 2 rules were that they needed to take their shoes off when they came in the house. I'm sure, as you know, that if you have children, get outside and play and can come in, and when you have a new home, you want to keep things nice. So the children took their shoes off. I mean, I never thought that that was a big deal. I take my shoes off when I go into people's homes. I think it's a matter of respecting others, property. All right. And the next thing was that they were not allowed to have drinks or food wherever there was carpet. The carpet was white, wasn't it? Yes. We didn't have as much carpet in the house. Usually, if the boys were in the house, they wanted to be up in the TV room where the big screen TV was, because they had a Nintendo set, and that is where they played a lot. What did the boys like to do at that stage? There wasn't too much they didn't like to do. They just loved to play. I mean, they was a lot of times that they would ask me if they could get the blankets out and make tents up. I don't know if any of you ever did that when you were little, but I used to do that when I was little. And did you all go camping as a family? Yes, a lot. Liked to do that? Yes. Liked to be outside? Very much. Enjoyed the outdoors? Yes. Did the boys like that? Yes, very much. Boys like to ride in the car? Yeah, they were very good. Okay. I mean, long periods of time, you get two brothers cooped up together, they can get a little bit irritable, but for the most part, they were good. I guess living in Dallas, y'all would go to Wet and Wild or, oh yeah, Wet and Wild, Six Flags, the zoo, Medieval Times was one of their favorites. The boys shared your love of animals. They like to go to the zoo? Yes. Now, Darlie, moving on to June the 6th. And then Mr. Mulder says to the judge, Judge, you generally take a break about this time. I don't want to get into some that will require us to take a break. The court says, no problem, just keep going. And Mr. Mulder says, all right. And the court says, the jurors are okay, aren't they? Mr. Mulder says, if you will give me a little notice before, I won't start anything. The court says, I certainly will. Do you need a break? The jurors say, I'm all right. And Mr. Mulder then continues. Now, Darlie, moving on to June 5th of 1996, you had a lady who was there at your house, Helena, I believe. Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. Basha's mother? Yes, sir. Okay. And how long had she worked with you there at the house? 2 days. Okay. And Basha, her daughter, had been a friend of yours over the years, had she not? Yeah. And at one time, y'all were quite close, weren't you? At one time. Okay. And as the years went by, did y'all drift apart? Yes. And why was that? Well, Mr. Toby Shook of the prosecution says, Judge, could we approach the bench for a moment before she answers that question? And the court says, you may. And at this point, a discussion is held, which was off the record, and then the proceedings were resumed. The court says, all right, just keep going. Mr. Mulder continues. Let me just direct your attention back to June the 5th, and I'll ask you if Helena was there that day and that afternoon. Yes, she was. And do you recall about what time Baja picked her up? I want to say that it was approximately like 6 o'clock. Okay. Did you recall an incident where Helena is somewhat difficult to understand, isn't she? A little bit? She is a little bit difficult to understand if you don't know her. Okay. But at any rate, did you have occasion to have your attention directed to the alley behind your garage? Yes, sir, I did. Okay. And when you did you notice anything of an unusual nature? Was there anything that attracted your attention? Yes, sir. Would you tell the jury what that was? Well, Helena was out in front of me, and I was behind Helena. And when Helena started walking out, I just caught the tail end of a black car that was in the alleyway, and it scooted out of there pretty quick. And Helena told me that the person in the car was stopped in the alley looking in the garage. The garage door had been opened. Okay. And this alarmed you, I assume? Well, I didn't think a whole lot of it really. I mean, at that time, I didn't. I think a lot more of it now, but it was unusual. Well, yeah. Okay. Now, Darlie, during April and May, had you and Darin received some telephone calls that were unusual? Yes, sir. I had been receiving a lot of hang-up calls. I don't know if you really want to call it a hang-up call because they didn't really hang up. They would call and I would be on the other line and I would answer, hello. And I would be sitting there talking to air, hello, who is this? And they just kept staying on the line. And finally, after a few seconds of, just asking who it was, then I hung the phone up. This went on quite a bit. Okay. Did you pay it any mind at that time? No, I just figured that it was kids prank calling. I mean, Devin had been in school, had he not? Yes, he did. And I reckon that a 6-year-old, nearly 7-year-old knows his phone number. Devin knew his phone number very well. Okay. So it could have been no cause for alarm at that time? No. Okay. Now, about what time did Darin get home from work that day? It was probably sometime after 6 o'clock. All right. What happened when Darin got home? Well, Darin came home with Dana, my little sister. My little sister works at the shop for us, and the boys had been outside playing, and I was making dinner. And what were you fixing that evening, if you recall? I was fixing chicken noodle soup and rolls. Okay. Darin and Dana walked in, and Baja and Helena had just left. And really, I was just finishing up dinner, getting it ready to eat. Okay, where were the boys? They were outside playing with their friends in the backyard. Okay, y'all had a spa in the backyard, did you? Yes. All right. Hot tub? Yes, sir. And the boys would go in there and play from time to time? Quite often. Okay, was the spa full of water or how deep was it? Well, it was. That day, they had emptied the spa out about halfway playing. Okay. They were, which actually made it safer for them, I guess. Safer? I'm not sure. Well, how deep was it? Well, 2 feet? Well, the medium part of the hot tub was probably 3.5 feet, but all around the hot tub, there were seats. So it was only maybe a foot. Okay. And they were used to playing in the hot tub, I guess. Oh, yeah. I mean, I checked on them and I wasn't, too worried about as far as the safety. I mean, if I would have thought it was unsafe, I never would have. That is one of the reasons why we didn't get a pool. Okay. At any rate, when it came time for supper, did you call the boys in? Yes. Okay. And did you all eat supper together? Yes, we did. All right. How about baby Drake? What was he? He was sitting in the high chair. I had fed him some of the chicken noodle soup. And where did the boys sit? They sat at their little table beside the big table. So you had a large table, and then you had a little table, so the boys had their own table? Right. And everyone had dinner? Yes. Okay. And what happened after dinner? After dinner, the boys wanted to go back outside because their friends were all outside playing. And so after they finished their dinner, I told them that they could, but only for a little while. So they went back outside to play. I talked to Darin and Dana for a little while about the business and what all had gone on there that day and what was going on. And then after that, I asked Darin if he would fix the gate because it was hard to open and close. Is that the gate in the backyard? Yes. What was wrong with the gate? I don't really know. I'm not a wood person, but it was not opening and closing the way it should have. The boys and I could manage with it, but you had to pull hard to open it and you have to push it really hard to close it. To get it open or close either way, was it rather difficult for you? Yes. How many cars did you have back then? We had two. Okay. And which car was your car? My car was the green Pathfinder. Okay. Kind of a station wagon looking car? Yeah, kind of, I guess. Okay. Sports vehicle, utility vehicle. Okay. And what type of car was Darren driving? Darren had I think it was an 86 or 87 Jaguar. Okay. Was his car working? Not at that time. Okay. And how long had his car been in the shop? 2 days. Okay. Do you know what was wrong with his car? I have no idea. I mean, I knew what was wrong. I have learned what was wrong with it. But at that time, I didn't know what was wrong with it. Okay. But at any rate, when his car was, where did he ordinarily park his car? He always parked the car in the back in the driveway. Okay. Y'all couldn't get the car in the garage? No. Okay. So if his car was not in the driveway, it would be an indication to the people that were familiar with the area that he was not home? Yes, sir. Now, did he, in fact, get the gate fixed? Yes, he did. I had a lady that had just been over the night before that had a Pomeranian, and I have a little Pomeranian, and we were breeding the dogs, or we were trying to breed the dogs, and she was going to be back Thursday night. And so I wanted to make sure that the gate was locked because the first time we had to breed them in the house, and dogs are animals, period, and are very funny about being around people when they are breeding. They don't like to be around people. And plus they make a lot of rackets and a lot of noise, and you want to, okay, so you are going to put the dogs in the yard. I assume you wanted to secure the gate? Yes, sir. So they couldn't get out? Right. Yeah. I didn't want to be responsible for losing somebody else's dog. And Darren was handling that chore that evening? Yes, sir. Okay. And did he complete that or advise you that he had completed it? Later on, he told me that he had fixed it. Okay. Were y'all planning on having a garage sale? Yeah. Okay. And tell me about what you had done in preparation for the garage sale. We had a lot of stuff since we had moved into that house, and a lot of the stuff you just kind of accumulate over the years. And, you get to a point where you realize that, okay, we need to get rid of some of this stuff. So we had been going through this stuff for months. And just any time that we came across something, we would put it out in the garage over to the side, whether it was in a bag or a box or whatever. And I had been pricing some of the things out there. I had not finished pricing. There was quite a bit of stuff out there. Okay. Did Darren go into the garage to work and separate? Later on, he did after he got finished with the garage. Okay, I mean the gate. Okay, after he had finished in the garage, what is the next thing that happened? Did he come inside? Yes, all right. Were you still there with Dana, your sister? Yeah, actually, during that time, I had gone upstairs with Dana and we had put the baby down for what I call a power nap. It's a 30-minute little nap. It makes a great difference in children. And I put him down for a nap because he was sleepy. And then I came back downstairs, me and Dana, and we were talking about the wedding and Arenda's wedding and just all different kinds of things. She was engaged to be married too. So we were talking about that. Okay. And along with Darren as well? Yes, sir. Okay. After he came back in the garage, what was the next thing that happened? It was around, I want to say about 8:30. And I told the boys that they needed to tell their friends, that they needed to go home, that it was time to come in. I think Devin had said something about wanting to spend the night with a friend, but he had just had a little boy named Michael over the night before. And plus, they had kind of gotten in a little bit of trouble for emptying out all of the water in the hot tub from their father. So, anyway, he was told that he couldn't have Jonathan to spend the night, that he could have him spend the night another night. Okay. Darren left to take Dana home. Yeah, after the boys came in, I guess everybody has seen the pictures. But when you walk into the house through these sliding glass doors, I had these like plastic runners down on the floor. And there was a reason for that because the boys like to run in and out of the house soaking wet. And they tracked in a lot of dirt and stuff on their feet. And when they came in, I told them that they needed to go upstairs and get dry clothes on. And they went upstairs and I vacuumed over there because they had drug in quite a bit of dirt off of their feet. A few minutes later, the boys came downstairs with their pillows and blankets and asked if they could watch TV downstairs. A little bit after that, I asked Darren if he could drive Dana home, and he said he would. Okay. About how long was Darren gone? Maybe 30 minutes. Okay. And you said that you had used the vacuum cleaner to sweep up there in the den. Is that right? Yeah, over by the sliding glass doors. Okay. And do you recall where you would have left the vacuum cleaner after you had cleaned up? Do you remember? I think it was right over by where the outlet was, over by the down from the sliding glass doors. Out by the bar? Yes. Okay. Now, Darren got home. About what time is it now, Darlie? It was probably a little bit after 10 o'clock. Okay. And where were the boys? Devin had fallen asleep in front of the TV, and Damon was laying down in front of the TV, and he had not fallen asleep yet. Okay. Drake was on me, laying on me. I was laying on the couch. Okay. And did you and Darren call when he came in? I mean, did you and Darren talk when he came in? Yeah. When Darren came in, the baby was getting pretty fussy. And so I made him a bottle, and Darren said that he was going to take him upstairs and rock him. I usually rocked him every night and sang to him. And Darren said that he was going to do that he wanted to watch the news. I don't really like to watch the news. I think there is too much negative stuff on the news. But anyway, I was watching something else. I don't know what I was watching, but I was watching something else on TV. Did you all have a big screen TV set downstairs as well? Yeah, it was an older one, but yes. In the family room? Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Okay. And I'll ask you if Darren eventually came down from upstairs. Yes, he did. And did y'all continue to talk? Yes, we did. Okay. Do you recall when you decided that you would spend the night downstairs? It was sometime after that. Okay. And how were you dressed at that time? I just had on a t-shirt and panties. Or not really a t-shirt, it was like a nightshirt, a little bit longer than a regular t-shirt. Okay. Kind of an oversized t-shirt? Yeah. That ladies wear? Yeah. All right. Now, I'll ask you if we have had occasion to listen to the 911 tape, Darlie. Yes, sir. Several times. And have we a number of times, haven't we? Yes. And have we looked at the state's transcription of the 911 tape and listened to the tape itself to check its accuracy? Many times. Okay. And in listening to the 911 tape, have we made some corrections in the state's version? Some. Okay. Let me hand you what has been marked for identification and record purposes as Defendant's Exhibit 96 A. And I'll ask you if this shows the state's version of the transcript of the 911 tape, and in where there is discrepancy or we think we hear something different, we have put in bold print, italics, what we believe is actually said right underneath it? Yes. Yes, sir. Is that correct? Yes, sir. Okay. And then on Defendant's Exhibit 96 B, it is simply our version of what the 911 tape says without calling attention to, and we have excised what the state has in places that we disagree. Is that correct? Yes, sir. Mr. Mulder then says we would offer in evidence what has been marked for identification for record purposes as Defendant's Exhibit number 96. And Mr. Mulder then says, and Sandy, what I'm going to do is just mark this as our version as 96, and with the 96 A is the enhanced version. The court says, any objection? Mr. Mulder says, Judge, we would offer in evidence. Mr. Shook says, which is it, the first one or both? Mr. Mulder says, we're going to offer both into evidence. Mr. Shook says, may I take the witness on voir dire, Judge? And the court says, you may indeed. So Mr. Shook, again with the prosecution, takes Darlie on voir dire, and he begins. So I take it, Mrs. Routier, that I guess, is it 96 A has in heavy print another interpretation that you listened to that you think the 911 tape says? Yes, sir. It's not by much, but some. Okay. So anytime we see a bold printing, that is what you think is different. Yes. You think that you heard? Yes, sir. And did you interpret this tape or did you have any help interpreting this tape? As far as what I heard, I interpreted it. There were other people listening as well. Who else was listening? Lloyd Harrelson. Is that Mr. Harrell? Mr. Mulder says Harrell. And Darlie says Harrell. I'm sorry. And I think Preston also. And Mr. Shook continues his questioning. Mr. Douglas here? Yes, sir. All right. Are all of the changes here, were those your ideas or did they hear things that you didn't hear and have those put in also? It was a group effort, but I went through most of it. And whatever I made, I wrote down on paper next to what they said. And they went over it. And then they listened to see if they could hear the same things that I heard. And then y'all have had this printed up to show your interpretation? Yes, sir. Okay. Mr. Shook says, all right. No objection then, Your Honor. The court says, all right. Both defendants' exhibits 96 and 96 A are admitted. Mr. Mulder says, okay. I would like to pass these out to the jurors. And the court says, you may. Mr. Mulder says, all right. Let me show you this so it doesn't get any more confusing than it has to. This is pass those around. Okay. Pass those around. All right. All right. Now, the one I am handing you now is it shows the state's version as well. And then Mr. Mulder again begins to question Darlie. Darlie, let me ask you this. When you see something written on the TV screen, do you have a tendency to hear what you read? Yes, sir. Mr. Shook then says, Judge, we will object to leading. And the court says, sustain the objection, phrase the questions properly, please. Mr. Mulder then says, what I would like to do, Judge, is play this once with the jury following the 911 tape. And where they can see the court says, that's fine. Mr. Mulder says, I want them to listen to it. And where they see the italicized part, they will know that there is a discrepancy there. And then I want to play it again for them once they understand where the problems are. And then I want to play it again for them looking at our version. And the court says, okay, you are going to play it 3 times. Mr. Mulder says, yes, sir. The court says, yes, sir. Well, that is fine. That is fine. All right. Mr. Mulder says, our electrician is in the process of, and the court says, all right. While we're assembling all of the mechanical devices, we are going to take a 10-minute break. And that is where we are going to leave off on this episode of Darlie's testimony as well. Okay, so let's recap what we've heard so far. And this is just a small portion of Darlie's testimony. We learn that on this May 3rd entry, when she had written this, what they are calling a note, and when Darin came home, that Darlie had not actually gone out and purchased any special pills to take. These items that she was evidently considering, they were already in the house. And she had thought about using them, but after reading what she had written, she realized, well, she just better call Darin, and he came home right away. If you remember also in previous testimonies, when the prosecution was really making it out to be like, Darlie was some, forgive me, hard ass about her cleanliness of her home. And they were talking about the issues of the kids taking off their shoes when coming into their house. This was actually addressed because, like I said earlier, the prosecution made this sound like it was this horrible thing. And then Darlie even talked about how they couldn't have food or drinks where there was carpet in the house, which, as we've learned, wasn't in a lot of locations. All in all, I mean, I don't know where you sit on this, but I get it. I too, when I go to other people's homes, I take my shoes off. It's just a matter of respect. And no, you don't. If you have a brand new house, you really don't want people making messes in places that, could get permanently stained, right? So the questioning then turns to Helena, which is Barbara Jovel's, or Baja, as she's also known, her mom. And to hear her testimony, if you're interested, I'll have a link to that in the show notes below. Barbara also testified, so both her and her mom testified, and I'll have a link for her as well. But it got to the point where they were talking about how Baja and Darlie, they were close at one time, but then drifted apart. So when Darlie is asked about why they drifted apart, Toby Shook of the prosecution asks to speak to the judge. And we don't get to know what they said because this is off the record. And after this is over, the questioning starts back up, but this question is never answered. So, I can only assume that the reasons were going to be either A, Baja's mental instability, or the issue with Glenn. And if you remember, this was a gentleman that was brought up that had been flirting, I guess, with Baja, and Darlie wouldn't cover for him for Glenn's wife. And, this is also in another piece of testimony. But anyway, I can only assume that that was one of 2 reasons why that this was objected to. But nonetheless, when they go back to questioning, they go back to the evening before the crime occurred. Excuse me. Now, there are some discrepancies here in regards to time frames. So let's go over some of them, okay? Darlie believes that Baja, so just to set the stage, Helena, who was Baja's mom, was in the Routier home this particular day because she was helping Darlie with some cleaning. So Barbara, or Baja, works with Darin at Testneck at the company. So Baja shows up to pick up her mom, Helena, around 6 o'clock. And this is what Darlie said. Now, in Baja's own testimony, she said that she arrived at the Routier home at around 5:15 that night. Baja also said that she stayed at the Routiers for about an hour after arriving to pick up her mom, and that would put them leaving at around 6:15. And this is again according to Baja. Baja also testified that she saw Darin and Dina arrive at the Routier home as her and her mom were leaving because they waved to them. So Barbara's mom, Helena, who also testified, had been at the house cleaning that day, as I had mentioned, and said that her daughter picked her up around 5 o'clock. And Helena said that they stayed at the house for about 30 to 45 minutes and left at around 5:30 to 5:45. So between Helena and her daughter, Baja said that she got to the Routiers to pick up her mom at 5:15. Helena says that she got there at 5 o'clock. Baja said they stayed for about an hour. Helena said that they stayed there for about 30 to 45 minutes, which Baja, according to her time frame, would put them leaving at around 6:15, and according to Helena, it would put them leaving at around 5:30 or 5:45 p.m. And again, this all started because Darlie believes that Baja showed up to pick up Helena around 6 o'clock. So there's that time discrepancy there. Now, in Darin's testimony, he said that he and Dana arrived at the house around 5:30. So if that was the case, that would mean that Baja and Helena were also leaving the house about 5:30, which would actually put Helena's testimony of only being at the house for about 30 to 45 minutes, that would be more accurate with what Darin had said. Now, Darlie, on the other hand, said that Darin got home at about 6, and he came home with Dana, her little sister, who had been working with at the shop at Tessneck as well. Darin and Dana walked in, and Darlie said Barbara, Baja, and Helena had just left, which was correct because they saw each other outside. The only time discrepancies are really just like this 15 to 30-minute difference between what Darlie, Darin, Baja, and Helena have to say. Whether or not this is a big deal, I don't know. So let's move away from this for a minute and go back to the questioning. And they talk about in April and May of 1996 that the Routiers at their home, they had begun to receive a lot of phone calls where it wasn't really a hang-up call, but someone was on the other line. And when Darlie would constantly say hello, nobody would answer. They just assumed that it was kids prank calling the house because Devin had given his phone number out at school. My mind immediately went to, this Glenn person that had been brought up as a potential suspect in an earlier testimony. Because if he was really as terrible as everybody made him out to be, again, he was just a little background. Somehow or other, he worked near the Tessneck business. And he was married, but had his eye on Baja. And when this guy, Glenn's wife, had called the Tessneck business, Darlie had gotten the phone call at that particular day. And she just refused to, cover for this guy, Glenn, or to say anything and said, look, you just need to speak with Baja. Darlie believed that this guy was mad about this. And so I'd be kind of curious when these phone calls in April and May of 1996, just a couple of months before the crime occurred, they started to get these phone calls, right? I just kind of wonder, like, when exactly did this Glenn and Baja thing take place? Maybe it's not that at all. Maybe this is somebody totally different. And these phone calls were just simply to find out when the Routiers were going to be home. So I just wonder if the phone records were ever subpoenaed. I'd love to know, like, when these phone calls happened, the dates, the times, etc. That would be, I think, very interesting to learn about, or even where they were coming from. So let's go ahead. Let's move on, because in this testimony, and remember, we're on this evening, the evening before the crime occurred, Darlie said that the boys were outside playing in the backyard. Now, in her statement to the police, she said, quote, Damon and Devin were playing with the neighborhood kids outside, unquote. And then said that Devin had called and she told him to come home soon because they were going to eat. Damon came home and Devin came home then not too long after that. So either way, it seems like the kids were not in the backyard. And after dinner, in Darlie's original statement to the police, the boys went back outside to play. And this does coincide with her testimony. After the boys went outside, Darlie, Darin, and Dana, evidently, according to Darlie's testimony, all sat around talking about the business. She then asked Darin to fix the gate in the backyard because it was hard to open and close. According to Darlie, the Routiers had a Pomeranian and a dog, and they were going to breed their dog with another dog. And this lady was going to come to the house with her dog Thursday night, the same day or the same evening that the crimes occurred early in the morning hours of that day. Now, what does differ is that in Darin's testimony, he said that he had gone out to fix the gate in the backyard because the kids were going in and out and it was dragging on the sidewalk. So either way, something's wrong with the gate, right? The gate just doesn't work as it's supposed to. Darin, in his testimony, did not mention anything about dog breeding, but he may not have known, or just all he heard was that the gate was getting stuck and it was hard for the kids to open and shut it. His version of events, that having going from first working on the gate and then going into the garage to look over the garage sale items, is the same as Darlie's as far as what Darin did that evening. So during the time that Darin was out working on the gate and out in the garage, Darlie and Dana were still inside. They had gone to put Drake down for a short nap, and then they had come back downstairs and talked about upcoming weddings. And this is in Darlie's testimony. Around 8:30, Darlie told the boys that they had to come inside and their friends had to go home. Now, Devin wanted a friend to stay overnight, but he had a friend stay the night the evening before, and they had made a mess of the sauna or the water that was in the hot tub in the sauna. And Darin, I guess, had gotten on Devin about that, so he wasn't allowed to have another friend stay another night. When the boys did come in, she had them go up and change into dry clothes, and then they came down with their blankets and pillows, wanting to sleep downstairs. Here's the thing, though, and I'm trying to adjust this in my head, because if the boys were actually in the backyard, in the sauna, hanging out in the hot tub and they were all wet and everything, I mean, that's fine, right? I mean, they come inside, have to go upstairs, change their clothes, get into dry clothes. But in the original statement that Darlie gave the police, that's not where they were. They were outside playing, and that could mean that they were out in the backyard, true, but there would be no reason for one of the boys to have to call home, right? If they were just simply out in the backyard. So did they come inside wet or not? Or, maybe in her statement to the police, they had been somewhere and then they did come finally and play in the backyard. I mean, there's just a whole host of scenarios and what ifs or things that could have happened. Anyway, so Darlie says that while the boys were upstairs changing, Darlie vacuumed the area that they had just come inside. They had drug some dirt inside. And she said that she had left the vacuum by the outlet near the sliding glass doors and just next to the bar area, which separates the kitchen from the family room. And according to Darlie, after the boys had come downstairs with their pillows and their blankets, Darin and Dana were still there. And Darlie asked Darin to take Dana home. And Darlie believes that he was gone for about 30 minutes. Darlie said that he got back a little bit after 10 o'clock. Now, Darin's statement said that he left around 9:30. Now, Darlie's statement or Darlie's testimony so far, it doesn't say what time he actually left, just that she asked him to take Dana home. But Darin's testimony actually said that he left around 9:30 to take Dana home and then came back home to the Routier house around 10:15, quote, 10:15 or so, unquote. When Darin got home, Devin had already fallen asleep and Damon was still awake. Drake was lying on top of Darlie on the couch, and Drake was getting fussy, so Darlie made him a bottle, and Darin offered to take him upstairs and rock him. Now, in Darin's statement, he said he went and made him a bottle. Quote, I took him back upstairs and I went and got a bottle, and then I took him from Darlie, and then I went upstairs and I watched the news for a little while, and I held him in the rocking chair and I watched TV for a little while in the TV room. So in both Darlie's original statement to the police as well as this testimony, it was her who made the bottle for Drake. In Darin's statement to the police, there was no mention of making a bottle. And according to Darlie, she was the one who usually rocked Drake to sleep and sang to him every night. But Darin instead offered to do it because he wanted to watch the news, which is something that Darlie didn't like to do. So of this night of all nights, when we're looking for things that just seem out of the ordinary, right? This is a situation where it is out of the ordinary that Darin would instead take Drake upstairs, at least according to Darlie. Now, Darin eventually came back downstairs, and then he and Darlie talked. So we haven't quite gotten into all the details, at least from Darlie herself, regarding this talk, because then we move on to the 911 phone call and the discrepancies. But remember how in the last episode where we had the private investigator and the former FBI agent, Mr. Harrell, he was on the stand talking about what he had heard in the 911 tape and how it differed from what the state's version had. And remember how the jury wasn't present for that questioning because he, Mr. Harrell, had been in the courtroom during other people's testimony, and that was against the rules that the judge had set forth. And also remember how the judge said that he would not allow his testimony, Mr. Harrell's testimony, in front of the jurors because he had been in the courtroom. Well, evidently, Darlie was also there for these meetings about this 911 call and these differences in what people heard. So even though the FBI agent couldn't testify about these differences, Darlie could. So we're currently at the place where the defense is setting up their electronics so that the jury can hear the 911 call and follow along with the different transcripts. And this next episode where we pick up with this particular portion of the testimony will be available on July 11th, 2024 at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So thank you all for listening. Please, if you can, take a moment to subscribe to the channel no matter where you listen. Also, be sure to check out the new Beach House 34 merch shop at beachhouse34.shop. Thanks again, everyone. We'll talk very soon. Bye for now.